But on Italy though, and that's probably the best place to start, Group A, and they've arguably been the best team so far. They're probably everybody's favourites now, or the vast majority of people's favourites going into the knockouts, because they have just been so dominant and they've been in control of matches. They've never really looked as though they've been, really tested yet. And I think the fact that Roberto Mancini was able to name essentially a B team against Wales, and never really look too disturbed in that final game. I know Ethan Ampadu was sent off after about 55 minutes, but it just shows that the strength and depth that they've got, and that even though there was a new crop of players in there, that they were still able to play the same way, which probably shouldn't be a surprise to us considering that that was their 30th game in a row where they haven't been beaten. I think it's now 9 or 10 games where they've won in succession without conceding a goal. These are seriously good numbers, and seriously good runs. And I think going into the knockout games, you kind of have to think, well, unless they do something very, very Italy and kind of combust spontaneously, which I'm not ruling out, but unless they do something like that, I think they've got a very, very strong chance. They obviously have, they've got quite a few scouted football alumni, and quite a few currently scouted football age players. So I think it's probably a good place to start. Lee, I know there's one in particular that you've been casting your eye on, and I think everybody has ever since his 2 goals against the Swiss, which were fantastic strikes. Well, one was a fantastic strike and one was an excellent move. Manuel Locatelli, he's a regular on this podcast, and it's not hard to see why.
No, it's absolutely not. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we could have talked about Alessandro Bastoni, who's obviously came in the back line and looked really, really good. We're still waiting for Raspadori from Sassuolo to really come on and explode into life in this tournament the way that I think he will going forward. Maybe not this tournament, maybe it's a little bit early, but going forward for Italy, I think he'll be an important player. But before the tournament, when there were suddenly doubts emerging that Verratti would be fit for the start of the tournament, and as it was, those doubts were borne out. He wasn't fit for the first couple of games, and people started to question exactly how Italy would survive without a player who I thought was going to be one of their key players going to the tournament. And Locatelli has just slotted into that role in the midfield with his. We already know all about Locatelli. I mean, he's 23 years old now, so this is possibly the last time I'm going to get to talk about him with you in a Scouted Football podcast, because he's going to pass that scouted threshold sooner rather than later. I'm not sure exactly when his birthday is, but we all know what he gives to Italy. He gives them that calmness on the ball, the ability to break lines, the ability to quickly switch the point of the attack with those diagonals that he likes to play so much. But he's more than that, and I first, I mean, I think I messaged you this, Joe, and I was quite surprised when I figured it out myself. But Locatelli was actually the first player that I ever wrote about for Scouted. That was my
Mm.
first introduction into Scouted, if you like. And when I checked back my emails, the article that I wrote on him for the old site was actually in 2016. So he's somebody who I've been watching for quite a while now. This was back when he was still at Milan, before they inexplicably, in my eyes, let him leave initially on loan to Sassuolo and then permanently. And even then, you could see that he was this player. He was more of a box to box presence at that point. So perhaps he's not a regular goal scorer for Sassuolo, but he did get a couple of goals in that season, his breakthrough season at Milan. So maybe then, looking back, it's not that much of a surprise that he managed to get 2 goals in this tournament, despite not really moving into attacking areas all that often. But he's just such a lovely and fluid player to watch. I think that going forward, away from this tournament, we're going to see a lot of interest building in him. Juventus are reportedly extremely interested, and they're willing to allow a few of their younger players to move to Sassuolo, along with money as part of any deal. Which a club like Sassuolo, with their squad building, they would probably appreciate that approach, I would think. But it just remains to be seen exactly what will happen, because obviously Roberto De Zerbi, the Sassuolo coach for the last few seasons, who was one of the most exciting and interesting coaches in Italian football, he's moved on now to move to Ukraine at Shakhtar Donetsk, which I think is a huge loss, not just for Sassuolo, but for fans of Italian football, because Sassuolo have been one of the most interesting teams in Europe for me over the last 48 months. I think that It's interesting. I did a little bit of digging today because I hadn't seen the replacement announced, and there has been a replacement in Sassuolo. Alessio Dionisi, who was the coach at Empoli, who took them to promotion, has been promoted, has been appointed now at Sassuolo to take over from De Zerbi. And anyone, I know, Joe, that you were aware of his Empoli side and their performances,
Hmm.
anyone who's seen Empoli play last season will know that there will be a lot of similarities between the two. So post tournament, I think that Locatelli is going to be one of those players who drives an awful lot of interest from an awful lot of different places. But you just almost feel as though he needs one more season at Sassuolo. Just stay there for one more year, keep building that club up, and then get you a great move at the end of that.
Yeah, I mean Sassuolo, I kind of echo that because they have been interesting. You know, they're not a big club whatsoever, and yet they've been, very, very entertaining. I mean, I think it was it the season before last? It was weird. The year that Jeremy Boga kind of broke out finally, the
Yep.
ex Chelsea player. Obviously they've had Domenico Berardi throughout, and it was the 1-2 against the Swiss for Locatelli's first goal that was made in Sassuolo, where Locatelli's sprays it out. I think it's a half volley. He sprays out to the wide areas. Berardi then gets down the side. There's a nice diversionary run from Ciro Immobile in the box, and Locatelli's there to tap in. And then a fantastic Italian celebration. It was a great one to watch. But Giacomo Raspadori, as you also mentioned, he's a fellow Sassuolo player. So there's been a lot of influence on this Italian team, and they're a strong squad from that small club. Just a little tidbit actually on Raspadori. I read an interview with him yesterday about how he's currently studying for, and that the direct translation was motor sciences. However, he went on to say he has an exam in the anatomy. So unless he's talking about the anatomy of a car, which I don't think he is, I think he's studying a sports science degree throughout Euro 2020, which is quite interesting. So, he's all the players are coming back, they're relaxing and they're getting their massages and stuff, and he's getting the books out and he's revising. So that wasn't just another thing that I thought, it's quite nice. I quite like that he's studying to get something out of this. And I don't think we've seen Raspadori yet for Italy. If he might have come on in the latter stages of the Wales game, but yeah, he's a whippet. He's absolutely rapid, and he's there on merit as well because he's been very entertaining.